The courtroom was at full capacity that morning. Reporters lined the back rows, typing furiously into their laptops, while cameras, strictly prohibited but creatively disguised, captured every twitch and whisper. The case was already considered political dynamite. Pam Bondi had filed a motion to expose irregularities in a closed-door decision involving multiple justices, including Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett. No one expected it to gain traction. Least of all, Roberts and Barrett themselves. As the bailiff called order, Judge Roberts leaned into the microphone with a faint smirk. "Let's not waste the court's time with conspiracy theories and political theater," he said, his voice cool and dismissive. Pam didn't flinch. She stood calmly at the podium, setting down her files. "Your Honor, I intend to present irrefutable documentation that both you and Justice Barrett participated in communications regarding an undisclosed financial interest tied to the Mendenhall decision." Barrett chuckled. "Ms. Bondi, are you truly suggesting that Supreme Court justices are engaged in, what? Insider dealings?" The gallery laughed. Even the stenographer paused for a second. Pam just looked at them both. "Yes." For a moment, silence. Then Roberts waved it off. "This is absurd." Motion dismissed. Pam remained still. "That wasn't a motion. That was a declaration. And I've already submitted sealed evidence to the Department of Justice. They're here today. Watching." The air changed. Robert's eyes narrowed. Barrett's lips parted, as if to speak, but she never got the chance. The room stiffened. Pam stepped aside, revealing a plain-looking man in a gray suit seated quietly in the front row. He rose without a word, holding up a badge. "Special Agent Langston, DOJ Public Integrity Section," he said firmly. "Per sealed affidavits and evidence submitted 2 days ago, we are now acting on a federal warrant approved by a separate judicial panel." Whispers erupted like a wave crashing through the courtroom. Barrett stood up abruptly. "This is outrageous. You don't have jurisdiction to." "You're wrong," Langston said, interrupting her smoothly. "We do. As of this morning, both of you were placed under sealed investigation. The financial records involving the Mendenhall Trust and the covert real estate holdings in Belize have been traced directly to your discretionary accounts." Robert's smirk was long gone. He looked over to a clerk in the corner of the courtroom, as if hoping for some unspoken help. None came. "I advise you both not to resist," Langston added, stepping forward. 2 federal marshals entered the room from the back, their presence silent but heavy. One moved to Barrett's bench. The other approached Roberts. Cameras hidden in briefcases and glasses caught every second. "Is this what you wanted, Pam?" Roberts growled. "To create a circus?" Pam stared him down. "No. I wanted the truth. The circus is what you made of this bench." Justice Barrett's hands trembled as the marshal gently but firmly turned her around. The sound of handcuffs clicking into place echoed through the chamber like gunshots in a cathedral. "I demand to speak to Chief Justice Gorsuch," she snapped, her voice rising. Langston didn't flinch. "He's already been briefed. And he's not coming." Judge Roberts' face darkened as the second marshal reached for him. "This is political revenge." "A stunt, no, sir," the marshal said calmly. "It's accountability." Reporters stood now, some with mouths agape, others already whispering headlines into phones. A stunned stillness settled over the crowd as Roberts, a man once perceived as untouchable, was walked down the aisle like a defendant in an orange jumpsuit, though he was still dressed in black robes. Pam remained by the podium, unmoving. Someone finally asked aloud, "What did they do?" Pam turned to the gallery. "They accepted bribes through a fake nonprofit. They influenced the outcome of cases that protected their silent partners. And they tried to erase the paper trail. But they forgot one thing, a beat passed." Everyone leaned in. "I don't scare easy." As the 2 disgraced judges were led out a side door, the courtroom doors swung open again. 2 more DOJ officials entered, carrying a locked steel briefcase and a stack of thick folders marked "Confidential." They moved with quiet urgency toward Pam. Judge Melanie Keyes, who had been silently observing from an auxiliary bench in case of escalation, now stepped forward to preside. She looked at Pam with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You may proceed, Ms. Bondi." Pam nodded and accepted the briefcase from the agents. She turned back toward the court. "What's inside this case," she said, unlocking it slowly, "are bank records, travel logs, internal memos, proof of a multi-year judicial influence scheme that reached into no less than 4 federal decisions. All tied back to the Mendenhall Trust and disguised as real estate investments in foreign shell companies." The moment was surgical. Cold. Devastating. She lifted a document out of the briefcase and placed it on the overhead projector. The screen behind her lit up with a wire transfer from a Caribbean holding company to a private account under Barrett's husband's name. Gasps rang out. Another page showed metadata tracing a draft opinion, meant to be written by Roberts, found on a private email server used by a corporate law firm with links to the trust. "This is why they laughed," Pam said quietly. "They thought no one would ever touch them." Judge Keyes looked pale. "You're requesting a full public inquiry?" Pam met her eyes. "No. I'm demanding it." Judge Keyes took a long breath. The entire courtroom had shifted from scandal to historic. "This court," she began, her voice steady but clearly shaken, "recognizes the severity of the evidence presented. The request for a public inquiry is granted. Effective immediately." A clerk sprinted from the room to initiate the court's emergency chain of command. Within seconds, the federal inquiry was formalized. Every camera that had captured Roberts and Barrett's fall would now become part of history. Pam stepped back from the projector and gathered her documents, her expression unreadable. One reporter broke the silence. "Ms. Bondi, what made you pursue this? Weren't you warned?" Pam turned to face him. "I was warned every step of the way. I was told I'd be disbarred, threatened with federal audits, even followed. But the justice system doesn't belong to men and women in robes. It belongs to the people it serves. And I serve them." As murmurs of agreement spread through the courtroom, one of the marshals returned and leaned toward Judge Keyes. "They're in federal custody. Both are being transported to a secure holding facility in D.C. Keyes nodded. Pam quietly gathered her files, ready to leave, but before she could exit, Keyes spoke again. "One final note," she said firmly. "Ms. Bondi, on behalf of this bench and the legal community, thank you." Pam paused, just for a moment. Then walked out. Not as an attorney defending a motion, but as the woman who brought down 2 Supreme Court justices. By that evening, headlines had already swallowed the nation. Judges Roberts Barrett arrested in court, Pam Bondi delivers shocking evidence, historic collapse at Supreme level, DOJ confirms judicial corruption probe, Bondi's bombshell, how one attorney took down a power pair, news vans circled the federal courthouse like vultures, while pundits across the political spectrum scrambled to rewrite scripts in real time. Protesters gathered on courthouse steps, some cheering Bondi's courage, others in disbelief that such towering figures had crumbled so swiftly. Inside the Justice Department, an emergency task force had already been convened. The scope of the scandal, they quickly discovered, reached far beyond Roberts and Barrett. Additional subpoenas were being drafted for associates, law clerks, and even private donors. Meanwhile, Bondi sat alone in a quiet side room, away from the chaos. Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous warning. She didn't even check it this time. A knock on the door broke her moment of silence. It was Agent Langston. "They're both being held without bail," he reported. "And the Attorney General just called. He wants to meet with you. Tonight." Pam nodded slowly. "Tell him I'll be there." Langston hesitated. "You understand what this means now, don't you?" Pam met his eyes. It means the highest court in the land isn't untouchable anymore. The Justice Department's private conference wing was unusually still that night. No cameras. No press. Just tight security, sealed hallways, and a dimly lit room where the Attorney General waited at the head of a long polished table. Pam entered, carrying the same briefcase. She was dressed simply, no dramatics, no entourage. Just her and the truth she'd exposed. The Attorney General stood to greet her. "Ms. Bondi," he said, offering a firm handshake. "You just changed the trajectory of this nation." Pam sat across from him. "I didn't want to change history. I wanted to correct it." He nodded. "We've begun internal reviews. Several lower court judges are being flagged. And the Financial Oversight Task Force is already requesting cooperation from Swiss and Cayman banks." Pam reached into her case and pulled out another folder. "There's more," she said flatly. "I held it back in case this went sideways. Additional correspondences between Roberts and key donors, proof of influence over at least 3 past rulings. I wanted to see if the DOJ was serious." The Attorney General's jaw tightened. He accepted the folder and opened it without hesitation. What he saw inside made him pause. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. Pam leaned in. "You wanted to clean house. Then burn the foundation. Because corruption wasn't the exception. It was the design." Silence lingered. Then he gave her a look that was half admiration, half warning. "You just became the most dangerous woman in Washington." Pam didn't blink. "Then let them be afraid." The fallout hit faster than Washington could brace. Within 48 hours of Bondi's meeting at the DOJ, 5 federal judges had voluntarily recused themselves from pending decisions. 2 top legal advisors to Roberts quietly resigned. Leaked memos suggested internal panic, emails marked urgent showed coordinated attempts to scrub communications and financial ties now under audit. On Capitol Hill, committee chairs scrambled to schedule emergency ethics hearings. One senator, speaking anonymously, told the press, "This isn't just a legal crisis. This is a constitutional reckoning." Meanwhile, Bondi kept moving. She refused interviews, ignored party lines, and declined protection details. Her goal hadn't been fame, it was transparency. But the more she pulled back the curtain, the louder the noise grew behind it. She received cryptic letters. Blank packages. Private meetings were suddenly cancelled without notice. Whispers began to circulate of a silent coalition forming, those who saw her as a threat to their carefully constructed institutions. But Pam didn't care. In fact, she was already preparing her next move. That night, she met quietly with a whistleblower from inside a powerful lobbying firm, someone with access to sealed communications that went beyond judges, into Congress. The man looked terrified. "They'll ruin me if I speak," he said. Pam calmly slid a recording device across the table. "They already ruined the courts," she said. "Now let's talk about who bought them." The man's hands shook as he placed a flash drive on the table. "This has everything," he whispered. "Donor lists, back-channel texts, encrypted memos. They've been buying outcomes for years. Not just judges, committee chairs, oversight board members, even prosecutors." Pam leaned forward slowly, her voice measured. "Do you have direct names?" He nodded. "You'll recognize most of them." She picked up the drive and slid it into her encrypted laptop. As the files loaded, folder after folder populated the screen, each one more damning than the last. Confidential, Judiciary Influence Budget Q4, Draft Legislation Pre-Approved by Donor Group Echelon, Notes from SCOTUS Liaison Meeting, Suggested Language for Bondi Suppression. Pam's pulse didn't change. "They tried to erase my name from the conversation," she muttered, scanning the documents. "They didn't just try," the man replied. "They had a bill ready, one that would disqualify any attorney who publicly accused a sitting federal judge of corruption. They were going to call it the Judicial Protection Act. Pam looked up. They were going to make corruption untouchable by law. He nodded grimly. That's why I came to you. Pam closed her laptop. Then we do this now. Full release. Names, firms, payments, memos. No redactions. The man hesitated. If we do that, someone's going to try to bury you. Pam stood, gathering the laptop and the drive. They already tried, she said. But I dug my way out. And now I'm handing them the shovel. By sunrise, the files were live. Pam Bondi coordinated with an independent transparency watchdog and 3 international outlets to ensure immediate, global distribution. The documents dropped simultaneously in Washington, London, Brussels, and Geneva, beyond the reach of American censors or legal blocks. The headlines were seismic. Leaked files expose billion-dollar court influence network, senators, judges, and donors named in explosive Bondi documents. Judicial Protection Act was real, and it was weaponized against a whistleblower. Capitol Hill erupted. Over a dozen lawmakers were subpoenaed within 48 hours. Public protests erupted across state courthouses. The president, under growing pressure, held a rare emergency address. This breach of public trust is not just legal, it is moral. And those responsible will face the full weight of justice. Meanwhile, Pam sat quietly in a private office just outside D.C., surrounded by black binders, thumb drives, and post-it notes. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Some offered security. Others offered deals. She took none. Instead, she turned to the camera crew from the transparency watchdog. You want a quote? She asked. The producer nodded, rolling. Pam looked into the lens, calm, composed, unshaken. I didn't break the system. I exposed the people who did. And if you're scared of the truth, maybe you were part of the lie. The screen faded to black. America had witnessed a courtroom humiliation, a federal takedown, and now, the unraveling of a corrupt empire, all because one woman refused to sit down when they laughed.